It's the Bird Emergency, another special edition to mark a significant day in the bird nerd world. Plover Appreciation Day. Now, you might be thinking, what's a plover? Maybe you've never, ever seen a plover. Well, in Australia, there's no chance that that's going to be true because everybody has seen the masked lapwing. But they probably, well, actually, no, everybody in the sort of northwest, east, and southeast of Australia, 2/3 of the country, will have seen the masked lapwing or the spurwing plover. You'll know the sound, and you'll hear that very soon. There we are, right on cue. Right on cue. And we'll let that one go. Now, to Mark, is this the first Plover Appreciation Day, I wonder? We're about to learn that. But to mark the auspicious occasion, I have almost the whole world covered. We've got Rick Simpson. And I'm going to introduce Rick with a lovely little sound that I thought I specially picked out because it's the most common of the plovers in the United Kingdom. But as Rick tells me, it's not where he's from. It's not where he's from. He doesn't hear it. But Rick, take it away. Please tell us all about you, all about what your special interest in plovers is.
Right. Well, thanks, Grant. Thanks for having us here. Plovers are part of the wader spectrum, if you like. And to be honest, Wader Quest, which is who I represent, we're greatly concerned about all waders in the world. But this particular event gives us an opportunity to focus on the plovers themselves as a family. The golden plover that you just played it comes to us. Well, we have some breeding in the moorlands and so on. We live away from the coast and in an area which is pretty much waderless, which is a bit of a shame considering what we do. But that plaintive call is something that I am aware of and have heard. When we go to the coast and so on, we quite often hear them in the winter, which is when we get big flocks of them. And they're quite a delight. In fact, there is a place quite near here where they used to be 2,000 or 3,000 of them. And we would be driving along the motorway, not the motorway because you can't stop a motorway. It was a dual carriageway, and there would be a pull off, and you stop there, and in this beautiful damp field, there would be several thousand of them and lapwings as well. And I could spend hours there just watching them. They would shoot up and fly around in the air and come back down again. But this is the crux of the problem. That place doesn't exist anymore. Well, the place exists. It's been drained. They've dug a great big ditch across it.
We'll confront those issues in a second. Andrea Gress is our next guest, representing the continent of North America, but without the orange people. And I've got a noise for Andrea, and that will be self-explanatory when she tells us about her.
Yeah.
I think on this one,
Piping plover.
Right, take it away, Andrea.
Sure. Yeah, that's a piping plover alarm call, peeping away, probably defending some eggs, perhaps, or some territory. So I work for Birds Canada, which is Canada's largest nonprofit for bird conservation, and I'm the Ontario Piping Plover Coordinator. Ontario is the most populous province, and our nesting beaches are quite close to Toronto, just a couple hours away, so we get lots of human recreation, and as a result, lots of work needs to be done to protect our shorebirds.
And then in the bottom left-hand corner, it's Sonia Sanchez. Now, Sonia's in my part of the world. And again, we've got a sound effect for Sonia. Oh, there were the footsteps.
Yep, that's another alarm call of a hooded plover this time, probably as well defending or running away from a threat, taking the danger away from the nest. Yeah, thanks for having us, Grant. So I'm in Grant's part of the world. So I'm in Australia, in Melbourne. I work for Birdlife Australia, and I'm a project officer at the Beach Nesting Birds program. And our focus species is the hooded plover, which is a beach nesting shorebird that lives all year round on our Australian beaches. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second.
Now, the hooded plover is a really good species to lead into the second part of our discussion. But it doesn't even say world. I'm assuming it's World Plover Appreciation Day. Who came up with the concept? How long has it been going? I only found out about it yesterday, so we've thrown this together. Hence, I don't have visuals and whatnot, which maybe we'll get to next year. But Plover Appreciation Day. Who wants to put their hand up and explain the origins?
I guess I can go with that one because I think that it started in Australia. So Gronya Maguire, the Coastal Bird Program manager, she decided that plovers needed a day because, of course they need a day. We need to appreciate all things plover. So I think that was back here in 2015. So yeah, she decided that why not give them a day, and it started probably as a small thing, and now since 2015, we've been doing lots of things on social media and getting, as you can see now here, international people on board. So that's been really great. And I've been helping with social media stuff on Plover Appreciation Day since 2018. And it's been just really great to see how much it's grown and how much people are just engaged and just sharing their love for plovers.
And let's go up to the night owl, to Rick. How well known is Plover Appreciation Day in the Northern Hemisphere or in the UK specifically? And what are you doing to mark the occasion?
Well, lamentably, I don't think it's as widely known as it should be. I mean, I think we probably joined in with the first one in 2015, and we've been doing it ever since. We talk about it, we blog about it, and so on. And basically, we go out each year and we look for the 4 plovers that we can see at this time of year, which is the golden plover, the grey plover, the ringed plover, common ringed plover, and what used to be called the green plover, which is now the northern lapwing. So that's basically what we do. We go out and we talk about it and so on. For a couple of years, we were privileged to be able to join with the RSPB, Royal Society for Protection of Birds, at Titchwell, where we were in one of their hides, which turned out on those occasions to be a very good thing because it was horrible weather on both occasions. On the very first Plover Appreciation Day, as we opened the doors, as it were, and people, we were looking out at these beautiful little flock of lapwings, and a peregrine came in and took one of them. And it was not an auspicious start to a Plover Appreciation Day, although I feel sure that peregrine did appreciate it at the time. This year, we haven't quite decided where we're going to go yet, but we're going to do the same again. But this time, we're going to take a camera with us and perhaps do a little video afterwards. I think it's important that more people know about this because I think our lack of attention to the effects that we're having on plovers around the world is causing a great deal of stress to their populations. And so, we're very keen for this to be much more widely known.
Andrea, take it away.
Yeah, it's actually a really slow time of the year for us as far as plovers go. All of our fledglings left the province about a month ago, and they're all arriving down in Florida and the Gulf Coast. So we don't have any piping plovers anymore. So we don't have any big events planned to go out to the beaches or anything like that. So we just like to kind of wrap the season up and remind people about how special these birds are, and remind people that other plovers exist too. Killdeer are probably the most common plover species in North America. And a lot of people don't realize they're a plover. They don't realize they're related to piping plovers. And so, there's a lot to be learned and a lot to be shared just on that front. So it's a great time to engage people on social media.
Do you think one of the reasons that people don't or haven't sort of become aware of plovers, that it more generally, rather than the iconic species that we are trying to preserve, is that it's the old bird naming conundrum? How do we group them together? How do we describe them to the layperson, shall we speak? So let's open up the question: is a plover a dotterel, a lapwing? What are the differences, and does it matter? Why don't we refer to all of them as plovers?
Of course, they're all plovers. That's the thing. The family is the family of plovers. There is a group which we call the lapwings, all of which, except for one, which is a bird from your part of the world, are of the genus Vanellus. So that all the lapwings are very specific, and it's good that they have that specific name. The odd one out is the red-kneed dotterel, which is grouped in with them, but it isn't called a lapwing by anybody, not even people like me who love lapwings. The word dotterel, I'm out on a limb a bit here. I think there's only one dotterel, and that is the original Eurasian dotterel, and it was named dotterel because it's an old English expression, comes from an old English expression meaning stupid, basically, because these birds were so ridiculously tame. They were very easy to attract and trap and kill for food, and that is where the name dotterel came from. As people spread out across the world, they took anything that looked a bit like a dotterel, they called it a dotterel. So I prefer to call them plovers personally, but in New Zealand, for example, the double-banded plover is known as a banded dotterel. So people have different preferences, but basically, in a nutshell, they're all plovers.
Should we be trying to standardise the term, or one of the debates that's happening here in Australia is, should we perhaps be applying the most common or the most widespread, most widely used Indigenous name to the bird where possible?
Well, my preference is for using a lot of different names. One of the things that we do at Wade Quest is we look at the culture behind. Oops, things falling out. We look at the culture behind the birds and the names and so on and so forth. And you may have seen a little video we did just recently. For example, the grey plover used to be called a silver plover, which is, to my mind, a much better name. I'm not a great one for standardising names personally. But, when you run an organisation like we do, you have to be understood around the world. So it kind of befalls you to do so a bit.
What do you think?
I love the idea of using Indigenous names for birds, like when it exists. I think we should absolutely be acknowledging that. And it might make it a bit more complicated if we start using multiple different names for the same bird. But I think we can all get on board with it and just... It does us good to learn a bit more about the people who were here first.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be great, and especially starting teaching it in schools, so kids as well grow up knowing those names, and then eventually we'll end up using them as adults.
Also added to which we have the scientific name. If you want to use something universal, we've got scientific names. Yeah. So use these names. Great.
Yeah, that's always the standard way to refer to them, especially in literature. I'm just trying to find a way to make the group more widely known to the layman, because, of course, we've got the challenge of protecting each species, and then we've got the whole issue of raising money, having funds allocated to all the different projects, and we need to get the common man, so to speak, on board, because we're going to be needing their money, not only their support, but their money. Now, can you guys see that? We've got our first Periscope comment. Go, Sonia. That's good. Yeah, join in, leave a comment, ask a question, tell us something you want to talk about, and let's open it up, because that's what it's for. Let's move to what you alluded to earlier up there, Rick, was the destruction of habitat, the problem that we have worldwide. Let's sort of talk about the regional issues and then the global issues. that confront plovers specifically? And we'll start with you, Rick.
Okay, well, of the 4 plovers I mentioned that we have here, really the one with the biggest concern for us is actually the lapwing. We, across the board, we've lost 50 to 80%, depending on the region, of our breeding birds. And of course, it is this breeding, as I'm sure Andrea will allude to in a bit, is this breeding which is absolutely crucial to the maintenance of a species. So with the lapwing, they're not beach nesting birds, so they're quite different to the ones that we'll be talking about later. They nest in wet meadows. And throughout the last 30 years, farmers have been encouraged, bless them, they're doing us all a favour by producing food. I'm not farmer bashing, but they have been encouraged to use every inch of land to produce food. And that means draining out wet meadows. This beautiful little corner of a meadow that used to have a couple of pairs in. It's been drained and there aren't a couple of pairs in it. And this happens time and time again. Cumulative effect is that we've lost 80% of our breeding lapwings. And to me, that is a tragedy, an absolute tragedy. And it's a similar sort of thing, as I'm sure the others will talk more knowledgeably about, that's happening on the beaches too, where we're just eating away at the places that are left for the birds.
How about in North America, Andrea?
Yeah, beach nesting birds are very threatened. And I think it's just because we all love beaches. We just don't know how to treat them correctly necessarily. So there's damaging beach management practices where the habitat's being raked and the vegetation is lost, and then the beach erodes and then the beach is lost and none of us can enjoy it. So that's a big one. The building and developing on the coastlines is huge. And a big problem we deal with is just a massive amount of tourists flooding to the beaches. And again, like we love these areas, but I think we do need to figure out how to share them with the birds and figure out how to get people to realize that some of the things we think are good on beaches are actually really bad for those ecosystems. And if we treat them poorly, then we lose them. So yeah, a lot of work to be done.
And Sonia, I want you to address the issue at Warrnambool, because that's a very special case of conflict there, as well as the case more generally in Australia, please.
Yeah, so in the case in Australia, our focus species, as I say, is the hooded plover. So the main issue that we have on our beaches is really disturbance from people, because the plovers breed on ocean beaches that people love to go in summer and spring, and that's when the hoodies are breeding. So from September till February. So that's exactly when most people go to the beach. So disturbance from people is a really big issue, because when are incubating the eggs and they see a threat coming, the way they have to protect those eggs is actually leaving the nest, fleeing. So they take that threat away from the nest. And eggs can literally bake in the sand if the sand is really hot. It's a really hot day and the birds are off the nest for too long. So things like that definitely are having a huge impact on the breeding success of those birds. And then as well, vegetation. Andrea was saying, so here in the Belfast Coastal Reserve, in Warrnambool, that's an issue as well. We have a lot of weeds, especially marram grass, which really ties it's an introduced weed that was introduced, like at the end of the 18th century to actually stabilize the dunes. And it's great at doing that. It does it too well, because the problem is that in a natural dune system here, we would have hairy spinifex that creates a very fine slope. So the birds have a lot of habitat to nest, but marram grass is tides the sand too tight and has a really deep and spreads really quickly. Like the roots are really deep and spread really quickly. So when there is high energy waves coming, it just creates these dunes that are just literally cliffs. So the birds can't, they just lose habitat there and they have to nest on the beach, and there is just no beach left. So that's a huge problem. And in Warrnambool and around the Belfast Coastal Reserve, there is a lot of marang grass. And then obviously the Belfast Coastal Reserve in Western Victoria, it's the area in Victoria that we have the highest density of hooded plovers. So around 12% of the Victorian population lives in the Belfast Coastal Reserve. So it's definitely an area that we really are pushing towards protecting the habitat there. And for example, like trying to minimize the impact of horses on beaches and things like that.
That was what I was waiting for you to get to, the conflict that happens particularly there in Warrnambool, which is in Western Victoria. It's regional. It's a big town, and a major economic influence in the town is a couple of horse stables. And the beach, that beach where there's a lot of hooded plovers, is accessible and popular and has almost been appropriated by horse trainers down there. And when people on horses use the beaches, there are often dogs. So if the horses don't cause enough disturbance and trample the nest, then there's the dogs who are out there finding the eggs and the chicks. So that's a massive problem in that particular area. Sonia, you know better than me, has the conflict that was very evident because it was in national media for a number of years running. Has that been resolved? Has a portion of the beach been left to the plovers and a portion given over to the horses?
So there is still, we're still doing a lot of work and working obviously with the stakeholders there, like land managers and Parks Victoria. So there has been a lot of work done in trying to balance actually the beach use between recreation, which includes race horses and the plovers. So it's definitely been, there has been an improvement. So within the Belfast Coastal Reserve, so between Warrnambool and Port Fairy, there has been a conservation zone created. So there is this management plan that was released a couple of years ago, 2018, 2019. And there's been improvement done there. Probably we still need to do some more work, but definitely I think that we are taking the right steps, but those birds probably are still under a lot of pressure that we could manage better. It's definitely there's been improvement there.
Do we know if the population in that little part of the world is stable, growing, or decreasing?
That's actually, it's hard to tell. It's the area that in our biennial hooded plover counts, it's consistently the area that has the highest density of birds. But for example, breeding success, it's really variable. And this last season, for example, the breeding success was actually really low. There were only 0.2 fledglings per pair, but it was also maybe because of really high tides, so lots of nests got washed out. So it wasn't particularly because of horses or dogs, which probably as well also had an impact. So there are also lots of those natural threats that are having an impact, and they just really vary from year to year.
We don't only have beach nesting birds here, and many of the plover species, the group, are migratory. So the threats include that they need to have suitable habitat on the migratory journey for them to stop, rest, feed up to get onto the next part of the journey. Let's go back to you, Rick. Are there any particular conflicts that are arising in the coastal environment and then in your farmland and marshlands, and could you perhaps go over them and talk about who the stakeholders are? It's always adversarial because it's always about money. What's happening in the UK?
Well, here in the UK, with the lapwings, it's because of the breeding, but we have the same problems as everybody else when it comes to the non-breeding season, where the birds are not so much lapwings and golden plovers, but the other plovers, the common ring plover and grey plovers, they are very much beach birds. And we have the problems with beaches are universal. Wherever there are people and birds in conflict, inevitably the birds come off second best. And it is very disheartening wherever you go to see more and more people inventing new ways of disturbing not just the birds that are feeding, but the birds that are roosting. Come high tide, the birds need to rest. They've been feeding vigorously and they now need to digest all that. And so they gather together in high tide roosts, and somebody comes across with I'm not quite sure what they call them, paragliders or these noisy things up and down the beaches and surf. What they call surf gliders. I'm not quite sure what they're called even. And these people are getting
the kites where people are out surfing on the waves, and then you've got the ones where people run behind them on the beach.
Kite surfing, that's the stuff. And people are inventing new ways of getting to places where they never got to before, and it's just exacerbating the problem. We don't have anything where you are. You're at the end of the East Asian Australasian flyway, which is universally accepted, I think, as being a bit of a disaster area when it comes to the effects that what's happened in the Yellow Sea region, how it's affecting people, the birds that are flying down from the northern hemisphere to the south. That is a huge area of conflict, some of which is being resolved. An awful lot of work going into that. But here in the UK, it's the breeding that is really making the impact on our plovers here. It's the lack of space for breeding. Common ring plovers on the beaches, of course, the dogs, the people going picnicking and all the rest of it, all the things that they do everywhere are all having a huge impact.
And thanks for mentioning the East Asian Flyway. That gives me an opportunity to promote episodes 2 and 3 of the Bird Emergency podcast with Amanda Lillyman and Harry Sadler, where we talked about the journey of the Far Eastern curlew and specifically looked at those issues in, you've got Russia, you've got China, you've got Korea, and then you've got all the stopping points all the way down here to the southeastern Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand, where the birds need to be able to fuel up. So if anyone's interested in the plot in those episodes 2 and 3 of the Bird Emergency, and while I'm plugging beach nesting conflicts and how some of the conflicts have been overcome, our fairy turn issue episode with Claire Greenwell, that was episode 7. So there we go. Plug's done. Andrea, North America. Who are the conflict groups? Actually, I want to ask both of you too, because curlews have particular problems with farmland being disturbed while they're nesting in the Northern Hemisphere. Is that a common? Well, I know Mary Colwell with the has done such a great lot of work promoting the plight of curlews and the challenges and the actions needed in the UK. Is that similar in North America, Andrea?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got colleagues who have done quite a bit of work with that. It's more out in the western part of the country where agriculture is huge. And so, yeah, very similar problems.
So are farmlands and rangelands, for want of a better term, are they important for migratory plovers, or do you have any inland sort of resident or nomadic plovers like we do? We have the inland dotterel here in Australia. What's the situation in the Northern Hemisphere?
So we've got 3 populations of piping plovers. I'm going to speak mostly to piping plovers because that's really my bird. So I work primarily with the Great Lakes species right now. Totally nests on the Great Lakes, nowhere else. But then we've also got them out on the Atlantic coast. So those are shoreline birds, similar threats they face compared to like hooded plovers. But then we've also got piping plovers in the Great Plains. So we're looking at some of the lesser known provinces like Saskatchewan, Alberta, and then the states like North Dakota and South Dakota. So sort of that area. And when you get into the prairies and the plains, that's where you start to see some clashes with agriculture. but it's also a lot of water management issues out there. A lot of the plovers are nesting on reservoirs where they start out with a lovely, huge beach in the spring, and then as the dams are opened up, the water levels increase. So while they nest on something that looks like ideal habitat, and then suddenly the water is rising closer and closer to their eggs, and nests can be lost that way. So that's quite a bit different from some of the threats we get in the Great Lakes. But yeah, like there's all kinds of people involved across the country. Yeah.
But that's a particular climate change issue, isn't it? With sorry, Rick, jump in a second. But on this reducing of beaches on reservoirs and the Great Lakes, are you having an earlier snow melt, which is meaning that the available time for those birds is reducing because the beaches are disappearing earlier? Is that something that you're finding?
I wouldn't necessarily be able to speak to that. I'd have to look into it a bit more closely. It's been a pretty common threat for a lot of years out there. So I don't know that it's increasing more with climate change. I wouldn't be sure what the impacts are there. But they do a lot of work moving the nests back from the rising water. So they physically move the eggs back bit by bit. So that's a big part of the conservation effort out there. But yeah, whether or not it's getting worse in recent years, I'm not sure.
I was just thinking about the mountain plover in Andrea's part of the world, which, again, like because you brought up curlews, the long-billed curlew, their range has contracted enormously because they were very much prairie birds. And so they've come into a lot of conflict with farmland. However, the mountain plover, as I understand it, the mountain plover adapted quite well to nesting on farmland. It found it was able to do that. But then I read a report that said 70% of the nests that they attempted were destroyed by farm machinery. So I do know that there's a lot of work going on within groups over there to bring this to the attention of the farmers who are taking it on board. There are festivals for these birds out there. I'm not quite sure what time of year. I'm assuming it's in springtime. Exactly when it is, I don't know. So, there are not just, as I say, it's not just the beaches that are problems, but all of these problems, if we get people to understand them, I'm still convinced that there are enough people who care, who will do something about making changes so that we can share this planet with these wonderful creatures, which we seem to be pushing to the margins somehow.
Now, one of the reasons that I called the podcast "The Bird Emergency" is that we've had some of the most common birds ever seen on the face of the planet disappear. We've had the passenger pigeon. We've had, what's the common name we're going to use for the North American curlew? What that was hunted to extinction?
Eskimo curlew.
The Eskimo curlew, and I mean Carolina parakeet. These are all birds that were ubiquitous, and we're seeing it now with the European starling in its native range becoming rare. It's not going to disappear over here, is it, Sonia? The starling's got a stronghold over here.
Yeah, no, it's not disappearing here.
But it's easy for us to be complacent about how fast these really specific birds with really specific needs who are not able to adapt quickly to changes in the environment or changes in cultural practice, we can sort of blink our eyes in terms of the time span of human existence, and they can be gone. Anyone got something specific they want to bring up about their patch of the world?
Oh, I actually just wanted to what Rick was saying about really engaging the community, because I do think as well that there are still lots of people that want to do the right thing and care, and that's actually one of the focus as well of our program, because we work a lot on ground actions like fencing nests, trying to do the right thing, managing the habitat. But if we don't get the community on board, then you're just going to get a bunch of people that go to the beach or go in farmland, they don't know about the birds, so they don't even know what they are doing wrong. So yeah, we really need that community engagement for all that effort that we're putting in to go somewhere, because otherwise it's just pointless what we're doing.
I'm going to issue each of you a challenge for the next Plover Appreciation Day next year. The technology exists. We're all familiar now with using it. I will facilitate with each of you a live stream at a community event in your time zone for Plover Appreciation Day, but it's got to be a community event. Sonia, you've got to be out in a school. Let's do something from Warrnambool or some other notable hoodie habitat in this time in September. They'll be just arriving, migratory birds further up the coast. Rick, you pick a time, you pick a community event. It's up to you to organise the community event. All you'll need is a phone. We can do it that way these days. So I'll facilitate. There's the challenge. I'll facilitate it. You go and organise it. I'm sure you'll get something organised, Andrea. A school visit might be the only thing that you can probably do at this time of the year.
Oh, maybe a beach cleanup or something like that.
Yeah. Well, if we've got to spread the word, let's go to the community rather than wait for the community to click on the community and come to us.
Good. Yeah, like it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. As long as we can actually get together with people. Yeah, I'd be out in the field if I could now, engaging people.
Well, COVID's an issue. We have to put the asterisks on it that we may not be able to do that kind of event next year.
Oh, God. Hopefully, yes.
But fingers crossed, yes. And
you mentioned COVID, which has become a bit boring to talk about these days. But it was very interesting to note that on the west coast of the United States, where they had a lockdown, where the snowy plovers were breeding on the beaches, the snowy plovers were given a reservation, as it were. And this is where the birds have been able to nest. It's fenced off, and people have been, by and large, respecting it for years, and there's been a coexistence. Suddenly there's no people on the beach, and the birds have jumped the fence. They have spread out and started nesting in other places which would be suitable for them, which highlights just how we're restricting these populations just by our mere presence. But this idea of getting people on board, it's an uphill battle, because this very fact that these birds had jumped the fence meant that they were people who deliberately went out to destroy or prevent these birds from nesting because they were going to lose their recreation area. And this is the sort of conflict you get. And the problem is all the work that Sonia and Andrea and people like them throughout the world do, they spend months preparing for the breeding season. They spend hours and hours with their colleagues and volunteers watching these birds, and it takes one idiot seconds to destroy it all. And that is what is so disheartening, and why we really need to get people behind us, make this something that is make these people pariahs, so that they're just not accepted in their community anymore. It's what we have to do, I'm afraid.
We need to find the people in the community who are prepared to be the protectors and almost the vigilantes for that habitat and the species that live in it. Again, I'll plug episode 7 again with the Fairy Tunes and Claire Greenwell and the experience in Perth. While they got the cooperation of all of the stakeholders, the local council, the beach users, the local residents, they had a very successful program, and it seems to be spreading with one particular local council with managing the fragile beach nesting sites, and that the community forced rogue users, for want of a better term, forced rogue users to respect the areas, and hopefully that can continue. I think the idea of taking things like this directly to the people and getting them involved and doing regular things that involve more than picking up litter and stuff like that can sort of push the boundaries out a bit further. And we've got the tools like YouTube and whatnot, which only mean that you've got to be prepared to go out and put yourself somewhere. You've just got to go out and do it. And you don't need to produce slick videos and whatnot anymore to get people to pay attention.
No, I was just gonna, add to what Rick was saying that actually, there were, now during COVID, there were less people on the beach. And actually here, what's been interesting is that, yes, there may be less people on the beach. We actually, in some sites, we've had actually more people with off-leash dogs and things like that, probably as well because compliance, enforcing compliance is a big issue as well. We can have maybe management plans telling people what they should do. And we can try to empower the community and give them the information and try to engage them to do the right thing. But then as well, compliance here, at least, it is a big issue. No one really, in lots of places, there is no one policing that those actual, that the legislation and the management plans are being met. So that's also a big issue, compliance, I think.
We haven't managed to make the birds valuable for the people who live around them yet. But once we get to that point where the local community, the people who live and regularly visit particular sites, when they can identify the birds, they can tie in that those birds live here. That will be, I think, when we make incremental change, community by community, beach by beach, pond by pond, lake by lake. I think that's what it's going to take. What do you think, Andrea? It's your go now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think getting people to really connect with the individual birds is huge. Around 95% of the Great Lakes piping plovers are banded with individual leg bands. So we do know them as individuals, and that really helps with the outreach. We can say to people yeah, this is Flash. He had a failed nest last year, so we're hoping he does better this year. And he overwinters in Alabama. Having all those life details goes so far. We had a brand new nesting site this year where we weren't really sure how the community would take it. There were a lot of local cottage owners right in the area. And we just spent a lot of time on the beach chatting with people as they came to visit. And people started to get to know the birds, and then it went from what's all this fencing and what's this signage to hey, what's Flash doing? Are all the chicks still there? The conversation really changed as people got attached to that particular nesting pair, and we had a successful fledgling from that location. So it was really wonderful to see that kind of local support. And I think just spending the time with people to help them see the birds and help get to know them is that's huge.
I was just going to say that, definitely agree with Andrea. And that's part of, our volunteers in the beach nesting bird program. Lots of volunteers spend a lot of time on the beach talking to the beach users that come to tell them about the birds and about, there is this chick here that hatched last week and, it's not going to be able to fly until, in 5 weeks. So, and talking, most people have, because I've done that myself, and most people that I've talked to, they have a good reaction and a positive attitude towards the bird. So that's really encouraging, definitely.
Well, let's go around and sort of talk about the particular projects. And Rick, it's a big time to do the plug. I think I'm going to ditch the standard question segment that I usually do. I'll get each of you back on an episode if you're prepared to do the standard format where we really find out where on the bird nerd spectrum you sit. But for today, we'll keep it all plovers. Rick, tell us about WaderQuest and what you do.
Well, WaderQuest started really because we wanted to raise money for the spoon-billed sandpiper back in 2012. And we devised a very extravagant way of doing it. We decided to travel the world and see as many waders as we could in a 12-month period. Whilst we were doing that and raising money for the spoonies, we came across the hooded plovers and Gronya and her team. And we got a bit distracted, so we diverted and started raising money for the hooded plovers as well. And by the time we'd finished traveling to all these parts of the world, we discovered that whichever habitat waders lived in, be they plovers or otherwise, they were all pretty much being badly mistreated, and the habitats particularly, and it was causing problems throughout the world. Now, I've been interested in waders all my life, And I hadn't really realized this. So I wondered how many other people who weren't even particularly interested in waders would be aware of the problems that waders were facing. And that led us then to create what Wader Quest is today, which is a charity dedicated to wader or shorebirds, as they're often referred to, conservation. So we have two aims. One is to raise awareness, which is exactly what we're doing right now. And the other is, of course, to raise funds so that by preference, we prefer to help these small communities, exactly what we've been talking about tonight. So if there's any communities out there who want to start a project, but then we don't necessarily have the expertise to help you start the project politically or anything like that, but you may need some fencing, you may need some posters printing, we can help with that, because we found that small grants are very hard to come by for people who are starting up little projects and so on. And we believe that every nest is important. So if you want to save one nest, we'll help you do it. That's basically what we hope to achieve.
And to add on to that, the Bird Emergency is your forum. Small groups, researchers who can't get attention and are feeling like they're lost in a sea of publicity, reach out. That's what I'm doing this for.
Great.
Rick, the idea of forming a charity, how much administrative work is that for you?
Don't even get me started on that. There are times when it's a bit of a nightmare. I'll be perfectly honest with you, because what I really want to do is talk about, write about, photograph, go and watch waders. That's all I really want to do. I just find myself tied to the desk here a lot, and I don't recommend setting up a charity to anybody ever. But it is something that we're very proud of, and all the downsides that we suffer in that sort of way, very much compensated for by the successes, where we are able to help people, and where we hear stories from Sonia and Andrea, and people say, we've had a good year this year. So I believe that we're having an impact, and I have to believe we're having an impact, and that is what our aim is to do. So therefore, whatever administration we have to do, then we're happy to do it. I will just quickly say, because in case they're listening, we do have trustees who make sure that we all behave ourselves. And we also now have a group of people who we call the executive committee, because it sounds very important, who actually are doers. They actually help us with the things that have to be done. And they've been very helpful in alleviating some of this administrative burden that goes along with running such an organisation.
We definitely need to do an episode focusing just on Wader Quest and the wider activities. But what's coming up in the near future? What's your focus coming up for the next, in the run to the end of the year?
Well, we've been severely scuppered by the COVID, because one of our biggest things is giving talks. I very much enjoy giving talks. You can probably tell. It probably seems like I'm trying to give one now. But yeah, we very much enjoy that. And that is a way for us really getting into communities, getting in to meet people face to face, which we absolutely love. But that's all gone by the by. So what we're trying to do now is, it was recommended by one of our young helpers, said, you need to get into doing videos. I said, oh yeah, you've seen this face. This is not a video face. This is a radio face, right? But they suggested it, and we had a go actually for Plover Appreciation Day, and Sonia and people have been very kind about it, I must say. But that's what we're going to do, and
that's what I was waiting for you to show us. Tell us about that.
Just so happens I have a copy here by me. This is a book we're just about to launch called A Quest for Waders, and basically it describes two journeys. One was the journeys collectively that we travelled the world in order to see waders. So obviously we talk about the ups and downs, the funny sides, the tragedies, all the rest of it, travelling. But it also, underlying that, it tells the journey of Wader Quest from being those people who just wanted to see a spoon-billed sandpiper before it became extinct, to being people who are now running a charity. It was a long journey, but it's all in here. Basically, it's 400 pages, so you do need to have a lot of time to read it, I think.
at all good bookstores and some ordinary ones as well, or directly through WaderQuest?
Well, initially it's going to be directly through WaderQuest, and obviously we're going to be able to distribute it to some well-known bookstores in the UK. We're happy to send them to Australia, but I have a sneaking suspicion there's the business of the cost of shipping, which, as I understand it, New Zealanders and Australians are so used to that they just shrug it off now. So that would be good.
Well, we don't shrug it off. We're just very selective in what we purchase, I think.
Well, here you go.
Rick, what's the website? Come on, don't let an opportunity go by.
Well, talking not letting opportunities go by, I will say about this book, although Elise and I have written and done she did all the photographs, as always, we're giving our time and talents, again, such as they are, free. So all the money that we make from this goes and stays with WaderQuest. We're not taking a penny for it. So that's important for people to know. If they're thinking about shelling out, it's going to do good. It's going to help the world's waders if you buy that. So yes, we also have a website, www.waderquest.net, which is a project in the making. It's up and running. It is something that we're developing as time goes on. And we're often we're happy to have blogs, guest blogs from people. We also do a quarterly newsletter, which is freely available on the website, which is another opportunity for people, such as Sonia and Andrea and anybody. They can write about their projects. We'll put them in the newsletter and go out to perhaps a different audience that may not have heard the story before. You know, we're not the most famous wader conservation. Well, we might be. I don't know how many wader conservation charities there are, but but there are a lot of people who do buy into this idea now and read our newsletters. So if you've got something to say, get in touch. We'll happily help you say it.
And I think there should be more of the sharing of our online real estate, that we should be cross-posting on each other's sites or whatnot, because you only need one more extra eyeball and you never know who that person is.
Indeed.
They might be the richest person in your city or your state or whatever, and they might think, oh, $20,000 tax deductible. Yes, I'll send that over to WaderQuest. So, yeah.
We'll be here.
Let's the story of Sonia and Birdlife Australia and the projects you're involved in, and the focus of, say, the next. Well, we're probably going to have to look 12 months ahead for COVID Australia, because I think we're a fair way behind some of the other parts of the world.
So before for Birdlife Australia, which focuses on conserving Australian birds, and in particular the beach nesting bird project. I think it started in 2006 because I wasn't there, but we realized that the population of hooded plovers was actually there was a decreasing trend, and that was coming from data from biennial counts that were happening since 1980, every 2 years on even years. So then it was decided that we needed to do something. So this recovery program started focusing on the hooded plover in Victoria, and it started as a very small program, maybe with 2-3 people, I want to say. And then once it was proved that it could work, that the management efforts and the conservation efforts that were being done were helping the birds to improve their breeding success, then that started to become bigger and bigger. And now we have I don't know how many volunteers, but we have hundreds and hundreds of volunteers that help us on ground beaches, fencing nests and talking to people, as I said, because education and community engagement are a really big thing of the program. And then as well, we are very data-driven and science-based. So we also do a lot of research to try to fill in those gaps and see which direction we need to go next. And so, that's essentially what we are doing. And besides hooded plovers, we also work with other beach nesting birds that we have. So red-capped plovers, pyrostecatches, suriostecatches, fairy terns as well, beach-stem curlew in Queensland. Am I forgetting any? Probably. But we work with 7 birds. So that's essentially what we do, trying to improve their breeding success and trying to manage and balance that conflict between wildlife and humans for the beach nesting birds. And yeah, that's really us. And at the moment, we are actually, because of COVID, we are doing a lot of online things, which has actually been really good, because I think that we've managed to reach out to people that probably didn't know about us. And it's been great to have a lot of people coming to our online workshops. We are running now a workshop series about coastal birds. So not only beach nesting birds, but we also have some workshops about migratory shorebirds. So that's been really good. And we've been having people have been showing a lot of interest. So that's to show that people actually care and like those birds. So yeah.
You know what's next, Andrea?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Before you start, Birds Canada, is that part of affiliated with BirdLife International, or is there another body in Canada as well?
We are affiliated with BirdLife International. Yeah. Cool. We're the biggest nonprofit in Canada for birds. We've got about 50 full-time people across the country, and I could probably talk for hours if we wanted to go into all of the different programs, but we focus largely on citizen science and produce pretty impressive reports to toot our own horn, looking at bird data from what the citizen scientists have collected over the years. But there's so much. Looking at my program more specifically, we were approached back in 2018 by numerous groups in the province who just they were all doing piping plover conservation work at various different beaches, and there was a need for a little bit more collaboration and coordination. So that's where we came into the project. So we work with the provincial parks, some other volunteer groups, the federal and provincial governments, and just kind of bring it all together. So things like standardizing the volunteer training and the messaging that we're sharing to the public to try and be a little bit more clear with what we're doing and get the message out more plainly. But yeah, it's been really great. It's just been growing every season. Well, this year was obviously a challenge. We had to cancel the volunteer program and make some changes in that sense, but we're still able to reach a lot of people. We've also been doing lots of online and social media engagement this year, which same as what Sonia's found. We've reached some wider audiences, I think, and that's been really quite cool. Yeah, it's a lot of on the grounds work, protecting individual piping plover nests and engaging the public and volunteers and as many people as we can. And I don't think I'm pitching it that well. I'm kind of jumping all over the place because there's really so many aspects to it.
That's what I did.
You've identified one of the key problems that all of us in this sort of space, and hey, I just do it to help facilitate other people, but coordinating and pooling resources and making the best use of the time and not duplicating work that has already been done and efforts that are being made. So coordinating social media and all that kind of stuff. It all takes time. Everything we're doing takes time. So you've identified that and pulled it all together, and you're dealing with it on a province basis and then feeding it into the country. No doubt there's somebody at Birds Canada who is, picking out all the regional stuff and highlighting that in their national newsletters and curating the website and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really great. Now, before we wrap up, I am going to go around and with one of the standard bird emergency questions. I don't think it's going to be too hard for anyone except you, Rick, so you can be last. Sonia, what's your favourite bird?
Emmett, I knew it. I don't know. I guess, should I say the hooded plover?
That's all we ask for. We just demand the truth.
Yeah, the truth is that I don't know. I just love too many. I've really now fell in love with, because I was really lucky to see a plains wanderer. So I think that now that's my favorite bird. So yeah, if you ask me today, probably plains wanderer. If you ask me in 2 months, it might have changed.
Well, you'll have to hold out for the episode that's coming up with Dan Nugent about the plains wanderer. That's not far away. Well, we've got you covered. Andrea.
Yeah, I'm pretty obvious. I'm really into the piping plovers.
Well, that leaves it up to you, Rick. Can you sort out your? I'm going to guess that it's the Spoonie, but let's see.
You'd be quite wrong. I can quite unequivocally say, and I shouldn't use big words that I can't pronounce properly. It's the northern lapwing. It was the bird. It was the bird that got me into birding in the first place when I was a nipper. It might get mentioned in the book. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, there's no question at all. Am I allowed one last sneaky plug?
Mate, you're all allowed another sneaky plug. That's what we're doing this for.
My exco would be livid if I didn't mention Wader Conservation World Watch, which it's a very simple thing. On the first weekend of every year, every November each year, we run this Wader Conservation World Watch, and it is to celebrate the beginning of Wader Quest because it all started on the 1st of November all those years ago, 2012. Basically, it's very simple. Go out and look at waders, shorebirds. Make a note of what you see, send us an email. We do the rest. Basically, we create a worldwide list. We create a roll of honor of every individual. We answer all the emails personally to say thank you for joining in. And then we create this wonderful newsletter with all the information, all the birds that have been seen, some reports if people want to write reports. And the most important thing we stress is not that you've seen a lot of rare birds. The most important thing is that you've got out of your front door and gone and made the effort, because by doing so, you are saying that you care, that you know that there's a problem, and that you support the fact that there are wader conservationists throughout the world who are doing their darndest to do their best for waders. So it's a very simple concept. Go and see them. Tell us what you saw. All the details are on the website under the events. Wader Conservation World Watch. We look forward to hearing from all you lovely people around the world. That's it.
Well, Rick, don't let me forget that we have to do Wader Quest and the count as a separate episode so we can really push it out there. And the great thing about the podcast is that they just hang there forever, and every new person who discovers it, the podcast, however, they see the beautiful reading list. So, last words. Who's got something else that really must be said?
Dress like a plover.
Dress like a plover.
Appreciation.
Well, actually, tell us about that. Tell us about that.
Well, that was, so I don't know if you've seen or know on Instagram, like this amazing, like a lady on Instagram that started this account called Australian Bird Outfit. Her name is Tabitha, I think. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly because I've only seen it written. So sorry if that's not how you pronounce your name. So a friend, I think, that sent me a screenshot of that her Instagram account. And then I was just, because I was in lockdown and I was like, what else am I going to do? So I just started to look around the house and see what I had that I could dress as a hooded plover and as a red cap. Well, my attempt of red cap plover was just a swimming cap that was pink, not red. But anyway, and then I just thought, it would be great to just get people, just to dress like plovers, like she's doing on her Instagram, but just for Plover Appreciation Day. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm actually just gonna go now and see what other clothes I have and see if I can improve my hooded plover, because it wasn't great.
That's just another way of engaging people, and maybe on Plover Appreciation Day next year, at the places that we can make it happen, we can have a competition on a beach or at an estuary site or something. There's so many things that can be done. Anybody else got a final parting word before we bid farewell to the wonderful world of plovers?
I think just get out and bird. And I guess for those of you in Melbourne, don't get out and bird, but bird from your window. Just see what's out there.
Birding at home is the big thing at the moment.
Yeah.
And people are noticing some very unusual finds, as you were mentioning, Rick, with the lack of movement out there, the lack of disturbance. Birds are turning up in places that we had not thought that they would. So thank you so much, Sonia Sanchez, Andrea Gress, Rick Simpson, for turning up and being part of the bird emergency on Plover Appreciation Day. Let's just go out with some various plovers, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, UK and US. I think I couldn't grab an African one. There we go. We've got to ride the volume. So, Birds Canada, what's the website, Andrea?
birdscanada.org.
And does the piping plover have its own?
You can go to birdscanada.org/Ontario Plovers, and that'll take you right there.
Sonia, Birdlife Australia, that's birdlife.org.au.
Yep.
Right on cue, the Australian plover.
There they are.
Any other websites you want to plug out there?
So if they just go to birdlife.org.au/beachbirds, that's our website. But we are mostly on social media. So on Facebook, we are Hooded Plover, and on Twitter and Instagram, we are Hoodie Birdlife.
Rick, what socials and website do you need to get out there?
That's not my department. Well, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I couldn't possibly tell you what we're called, except try WaderQuest. It might be a clue. So we're trying very hard to keep interested as much as possible. And www.waderquest.net. Beautiful.
Thank you, plover lovers of the world. Look, here we go. Where are we? It's birdlife_hoodie.
_ that's how you say
_ on Twitter and Instagram. So thank you for getting us correct. And of course, this will all turn up on thebirdemergency.com, but also in the details, if you're getting your podcast on most of the Android podcatchers, you'll be able to see all of the links and all of the pictures on that as well. So happy birding, proud bird nerds. Proud bird nerds of the world unite, and let's get out there and take some action. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
No, thank you.